Can you see my screen and hear me? Okay, good. All right. So what we have last week we spoke about rapture. So we made a break from our regular study and we studied about rapture last week. This week we'll continue with the book of Numbers. So the last time we studied the book of Numbers, we looked at uh, how uh, the death of Aaron and especially the bronze serpent. That was something we looked at, how what the bronze serpent represented and how by faith the people of Israel were healed from the poisonous bites of snake. And but we also later saw that the people of Israel had preserved that bronze serpent, and for 800 years they offered incense and they worshipped before it. So during the time of King Hezekiah, he destroyed that bronze serpent because it had become an idol in Israel. So something which God had given to be a good thing, the people made it an idol. And then we also saw that they had something called as household gods, which were not exactly household gods, but they were like the image of their ancestors. And they started worshipping doing witchcraft in the sense they started consulting these images to find the future. So that was something that the people of Israel did, and uh, God was not very pleased with it. So we saw all that. And now we are coming to Numbers chapter 22 to 25. These chapters we will look at, and this is the story of Balaam and the king Balak. Okay, so we know this story. I will give a quick overview of this story. So at this point, Israel is almost close to completing the 40 years of exile in the desert which God had given them. Now they are close to the promised land. Now they are at this when this story begins, they are at the border of a nation called as Moab. And the king of Moab is called as Balak. His name is Balak. So by the time they reach this place near Moab, they have defeated some really powerful kings. Okay, they had defeated some giant kings who were of giant origin. Og and Sihon. These two kings were really strong kings, and they had strong armies, and the nation Israel completely destroyed them. So this news had spread around, and Moab, the king of Moab, that is Balak, heard about it, and he was absolutely terrified because now the nation of Israel is at their border. So what he does, he sends for a prophet called as Balaam. He calls Balaam to come and curse Israel. So Balak understands that before you win a battle on the physical realm, you need to win it in the spiritual realm. So he wants Balaam to come and curse Israel so that in the battle he would be able to destroy Israel. So he sends his officials with gifts with them, but Balaam was also a true prophet of God in the sense he heard not from demons, but he really heard from God, the only true God. So when the officials go to Balaam, he tells them to stay with them overnight. And in the night, God speaks to Balaam and tells him that do not go with these people. The people they are calling you to curse, they are blessed people. You are not supposed to go and curse them. So Balaam sends the officials back, but King Balak is not convinced. He sends even more senior officials and he sends more gifts. So Balaam again prays to God or speaks to God, and Allah permits him to go. And on the way, the angel of the Lord confronts him and was going to kill him, but he escapes in the sense, yeah, because his eyes opens and he does a little bit of repentance. The angel of the Lord allows him to go forward. So the prophet Balaam reaches Moab. He meets the king. The king takes him to see the nation or the people of Israel from a mountaintop, and he expects Balaam to curse. But Balaam kept on telling that, I cannot do anything other than what God will tell me to do. And he ends up blessing Israel. So from three different places, Balak tries to take Balaam and asked him to curse, but each of the three times Balaam ends up blessing Israel. And then further he does few more prophecies which speaks about the coming Messiah and what will happen in the latter days. So Balak is very angry because he wanted Balaam to curse. Instead, he came and blessed. So before Balaam leaves and before they part ways, Balaam gives some advice to King Balak, and he shows him how he can defeat Israel. And based on this advice, the king Balak, entices the men of Israel to commit immorality, to worship their god Baal, and to commit immorality with the women of Moab. And this angers God, and God punishes Israel with a plague, and 24,000 people died in that plague. So even though Balaam was not successful in cursing Israel, he was able to put a stumbling block on their way so that they angered God and brought a punishment upon themselves. So this is what we are going to see today. This is basically the whole story in this Numbers chapter 22 to 25. We will see some parts of it and we will go forward from here. So when we see who was actually Balaam, so there are few references here and there about who is this, because he suddenly appears in Numbers 22, and we have no idea who is he, why is he famous, and all these things we do not know. So most probably Balaam was from a royal family. Okay, let's read Genesis chapter 36, verses 31 to 32. Genesis chapter 36, verses 31 to 32.
And these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom. Before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. And Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Dinabah.
So we see a reference to a king called as Bela, who was the son of Beor. And now let's turn to Numbers chapter 22, verse 5.
He sent messengers therefore unto Balaam the son of Beor to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me.
So this is not uh, very convincing, but this is still very speculative. This is not a very strong relationship to say very convincingly that Balaam is from a royal family. But if this Beor, Balaam is the son of the same Beor, who was the king in Edom, then Balaam is related in some way to a royal family. Okay, so that could explain why he was famous. Okay, because he lived in a place called as Mesopotamia, okay, from where Abraham came. And this land is far away from Moab. So the king Balak, when he sent for Balaam, he must be really desperate that he made his officials to go on such a long journey to get this guy. Okay. Now let's read Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 3 and 4.
An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when ye came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam the son of Beor of Petor of Mesopotamia to curse thee.
So we know Balaam is the son of Beor, who could be of a royal family, and he was from Mesopotamia. So from Mesopotamia, he came all the way to Moab, okay, near the promised land, to curse Israel. And that was something that worked against Moabites. Okay. Now, he had a great reputation as a prophet. He was not a deceiver. Okay, so he was not deceiving people as if he is some kind of spiritual or a magician and he can hear spirits. He really heard from God. Okay, so he was not a deceiver. Okay, and we can see evidence as we read through the chapters that he absolutely refused to change the word which the Lord gave him. Okay, whatever the Lord spoke, he spoke it exactly. Okay, he did not change it, he did not pollute it, he did not do anything to please the people and he changed the word. He did not do anything like that. So, in that sense, he was a true prophet, that he spoke exactly what he heard from God. But he was also greedy for money. Okay, so let's read 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 15 to 16.
Which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bosor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness, but was rebuked for his iniquity. The dumb are speaking with man's voice, forbade the madness of the prophet.
So what the Peter also refers to this incident, and he says Balaam loved the reward of unrighteousness. So he basically wanted to make money. He loved money. Okay. So that is why when Balak sent the second set of officials, there was an internal struggle within Balaam because he was attracted to the rewards and the money that Balak was giving him. But at the same time, he was afraid what the Lord will say. Okay, so he had an internal struggle that way. Okay, so let's read Numbers chapter 22, verse 12 and 14. So this is the first time when the officials come to Balaam. Numbers chapter 22, verses 12 to 14.
And God said unto Balaam, Thou shalt not go with them, thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed. And Balaam rose up in the morning and said unto the princes of Balak, Get you into your land, for the Lord refuseth to give me leave to go with you. And the princes of Moab rose up, and they went to Balak and said, Balaam refused to come with us.
So when we read this, we clearly can see God very clearly indicated what his will was regarding this matter. There was no ambiguity in what God said to Balaam. He said very clearly, do not go with this people. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. Okay. So let's read verse 15.
And Balak sent yet again princes more and more honorable than they.
Yeah, so now Balak sent more distinguished or senior officials, and he sent more rewards and more money. Okay. Now, So what does Balaam reply when the second set of officials came? Let's read verse 19.
Now therefore I pray you, tarry ye also here this night, that I may know what the Lord will say unto me more.
So he wants to see what the Lord will say more on this matter. In other translation, it says, what else the Lord will say to me on this matter. The Lord has nothing else to say on this matter. The Lord has very clearly said, there is nothing more to speak. You shall not go, you shall not curse this people. But we can see that word else, which he used, or the word more that Balaam used, okay, that indicates a lot about his internal struggle and what he wanted actually. Okay, so again, verse 20 to 23. Again, this is the second time God is coming to him. Verse 20 to 23.
And God came unto Balaam at night and said unto him, if men come to call thee, rise up and go with them. But yet the word which I shall say unto thee, thou shalt not, that shalt thou do. And Balaam rose up in the morning and saddled his ass and went with the princes of Moab. And God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants were with him.
So here we can see that now God came to Balaam second time and says, if the men have come to call you, go with them. Okay, but you shall do only the thing that I tell you. And Balaam arose in the morning, okay, got the donkey ready, and he immediately traveled. So we can see the eagerness of Balaam to go. Okay, he was really eager to go. He really wanted the money. Okay, if he had waited and thought over it, he knows that God doesn't want him to go and he should not go. So, what we see here is an example of the desired will of God and the permitted will of God. Okay, what God desired was that Balaam to remain at home and not to curse Israel. But because of Balaam's internal struggle of greed, God permitted him. Okay. And that was not what God really wanted, but God permitted Balaam to go. Okay. With some conditions. Okay. But before we go into all these other details, so we understand that Balaam is going to curse Israel. He wants to curse so that he can get the money. Okay. Balak, the king of Moab, is really terrified that Israel will attack and destroy his kingdom. They will kill him. So Balak is really terrified. Okay. Balaam is going to curse. So we can see this situation that is developing. But was this necessary? Okay. Was this really necessary? Okay. So let's read Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 9. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 9.
And the Lord said unto me, distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle, for I will not give thee of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession.
So it was not the Lord's will to destroy Moab. God had no intention that Israel should fight with Moab. He was very clear, do not attack Moab, do not meddle with them, do not provoke them, do not get into a war with them. I will not be with you, you will be defeated. Okay. So God, if Balak had really known the will of God, if he had really known what the true God, he would have been at peace. He would know that there was no danger. He was sensing from a human perspective, he was sensing that he was in great danger. But if he had a true spiritual perspective, he would have known that he was absolutely safe because Israel would not attack Moab. It was not in God's plan. God had not permitted it. But because he looked at everything from a human perspective, he got into action. He started doing different things. He started getting a prophet. He started try to curse Israel, and because of which the judgment of God came upon him. If he had done nothing, he would have continued as a king. The nation would have continued. Okay. But because they didn't have a spiritual insight, they got they got really scared. So Numbers chapter 22, verse 3 and 4 shows how scared Balak was. It says Moab was in great fear because of the people in the sense Israel, for they were numerous, and Moab was in dread of the sons of Israel. Moab said to the elders of Midian, now this horde will eat up all that is around us, as the ox eats up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of Moab at that time. So it says that he was sick with fear. And when you look at some of the Jewish translations or their commentary, it says that he was so scared that it would induce vomiting. And he was so sick with terror because of Israel that he was physically sick. That would cause vomiting. That kind of sickness or terror was on him because of this people of Israel. But if he had spiritual insight, he would have known that there was no reason for all of this. He was absolutely safe. And if Balaam, even though he could hear from God, if he had searched this matter more, if he had inquired truly with a good intention, with a holy intention, he would have also found out that it was not the Lord's will to attack or destroy Moab. But because he sought the Lord so that he may get the permission to get the money and the wealth from Balak, he also was not able to find out what the Lord's will was. Okay. Now, Numbers chapter 22, verse 22 to 27. Let's read that. Numbers chapter 22, verse 22 to 27.
And God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the way of the adversary against stood in the way of the adversary against him, for now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants were with him. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand, and the ass turned aside out of the way and went into the field. And Balaam smote the ass to turn her unto the other way. But the angel of the Lord stood in a path of the vineyards, a wall being on his side and a wall on that side. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrusted herself onto the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he smote her again. And the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where was no way to turn either to the right hand or to the left. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff.
So basically, Balaam is riding the donkey and is going on his journey. But the angel of the Lord stood on the way with a drawn sword to kill Balaam. Balaam could not see that, but the donkey saw. And the donkey tried to move away out of the way of the angel, and it went out of the way. So Balaam struck the donkey. The angel went and stood again in front on the way of the donkey. And so it again tried to go a different way. And this time it crushed Balaam's foot. And he was really angry. And he struck the donkey again. And again, when the donkey tried to go in a different direction, the angel of the Lord went again and stood further ahead. And there was no way for the donkey to turn left or right. So the donkey just sat down. It refused to move further. And Balaam was so angry that if he had a sword, he says that if he had a sword, he would have killed that donkey right there. He was so angry. But then God opened Balaam's eyes and he saw that angel. And the donkey spoke in a human on a with a voice and was able to converse, and will not go into all of that. But God opened Balaam's eyes to see what was the danger ahead. Now, why was God angry after permitting Balaam to go? Okay, there are a few reasons. Number one, Balaam showed a disrespect for God's integrity when he thought he might get a different word on the matter than before. Okay, he thought he might get a different word. God will change his mind, but God is an unchangeable God. Okay, so he showed disrespect for God's integrity. His greed for reward and money. He was very greedy for what Balak was offering him. Okay, he thought he could persuade God. He was willing to curse someone whom God has blessed. God had very clearly showed to him that he has blessed Israel, but Balaam was willing to curse those people so that he could get money. His lack of desire to do the will of God, perfect will of God. He didn't care what God really wanted. He just wanted God to permit him to go his own way. Okay. And the way that he was going, the angel of the Lord says to him, your way is perverse before me. Okay. I would have killed you had not the donkey intervened. Okay. So his way was perverse in the eyes of God. It was abominable in the eyes of God. The way he was desperate for money, the way he was willing to curse somebody who was blessed by God, the way that he had an internal struggle on he doesn't really want to obey God. He knows he has to obey God, but he wants the money so much. The internal struggle that he has for the love of money, that struggle was abominable in the eyes of God. So his way was perverse in the eyes of God. And that was why when he left, it angered God that he actually left and he went to curse Israel. So, uh, so in this incident, we can see that till now, Balaam is shown as a man of spiritual insight who meets God at will. Okay, he knows he can go and speak with God. He knows he will hear from God. He's very confident about that, and he is actually able to talk with God. But in this incident where the donkey speaks and the angel is there to kill him, we can see his spiritual poverty. Okay, the donkey was spiritually more perceptive than the prophet. The donkey could see more than the prophet. Okay. So having spiritual gifts does not really mean that a person is spiritually mature or she has a good relationship with God. So spiritual gifts do not indicate a close relationship or a right relationship with God. Okay. So we should be very careful not to hype or elevate somebody because of their giftings. Okay. So the donkey turned this way and that way to avoid the angel, and in the process, she hurt Balaam's foot. Balaam hit the donkey thrice, and he was angry enough to kill the donkey. Now, one of the scholars says this that the donkey is a perfect picture of a simple, unspectacular, yet obedient servant of God. Okay, the donkey was sensitive to God's direction. The donkey became a thorn to the disobedient and became a victim of the wrath of the ungodly. Okay. So the donkey was perceptive of what God was going to do. The donkey modified its own behavior because of that perception. It troubled the ungodly and it brought the wrath of the ungodly on the donkey. So it's kind of a picture of what a simple Christian can expect in life. Okay. So that is one scholar's observation or perception of this incident. Now we will skip forward and it says we'll go to the part where Balaam reaches the king Balak. King Balak takes him to three different places, trying to make him curse Israel, but all the three times he blesses Israel. Now, out of those blessings, we will look at a couple of things. So let's read Numbers chapter 23, verse 8.
How shall I curse whom God hath not cursed? Or how shall I defy whom God hath not defied?
So it's very clear. In the blessing that Balaam is speaking, he says, I cannot curse someone whom God has not cursed. Okay, and I cannot curse someone whom God has blessed. That's not possible. Okay, so if God has not cursed, we cannot be cursed. Leviticus chapter 23, if we read it details about the blessings and the curses. And those curses are some really terrible curses. I mean, it will kind of, you know, it will really, it's horrible, the curses that are given over there. Okay. So the curses are already pronounced. Okay. The blessings are also already pronounced. What brings the blessings is obedience. What brings the curses are disobedience. Okay. So blessings comes due to obedience, curses come due to disobedience. So if we obey God, if we are obeying God and we are following his directions, then there can be no curse that can come upon us. But if we are disobeying God, okay, the curses are already written. Okay, we will suffer some or the other consequences. Now, there is an argument which says Jesus died on the cross to take away all our curses, which is true. But there is a specific time when the curses will be completely removed. If you read in the book of Revelation, it says, then there shall be no more curse. So there is a point when curse will be completely removed. God will remove it. So till then, there we will be experiencing the effect of obedience and disobedience. We will be experiencing it in our life. Okay. Otherwise, just like God cursed the earth, and there should be, if all curses were removed, there should have been no death. There should be no pain during childbirth. There should be no difficulty in earning a living because God cursed the earth because of man's disobedience. If all curses have been removed, these three things should also have been removed. But we still see that these things exist. These things are continuing. They will continue for a certain time. But at a fixed time, there is a specific time when God will remove all curses. Okay. So we need to remember something very simple. Obedience brings blessing. Disobedience brings curses. We don't have to really get into every single details of how curses work, how these things work, how that thing works. If we can just remember, am I obedient or not? If everything that God has revealed to me, am I obeying it or not? If we are obeying, we don't need to get into all these details. We can be sure that there can be no curse whom God has blessed. Okay. So let's go forward. Numbers chapter 23, verse 21.
He hath not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither hath he seen perseverance in Israel. The Lord is his God is with him, and the shout of a king is among them.
So this is the second time, and we see that God says, I have not observed iniquity in Jacob. I have not seen any perverseness or wickedness in Israel. Therefore, the Lord, his God, is with him, and the shout of the king is among them. Okay, so Israel is living peacefully at this point without any serious rebellion or disobedience. Okay, so God's observation is there is no iniquity in Jacob, there is no wickedness in Israel. Okay, so uh, further after this, we see Balaam prophesying other things, and in that we see Balaam prophesying about the coming of Jesus, the birth of the Messiah, and all those things are there. So, but at this point, there is no iniquity in Jacob. But this is something probably what Balaam understood, that the Lord is with Israel because there is no iniquity there. So if you put iniquity there, the Lord will not be there. The Lord will turn against Israel. And this is exactly what he advised Balak, the king. Okay. So we see this mention of this advice that Balaam gave to the king. We see it at different places. Okay, so let's read Numbers chapter 31, verse 1 and 2, verse 8, then verse 14 and 16. Let's read first 1 and 2. Because of what Balaam did and what Balak did, okay, uh, they were supposed to live in security, but now see what is happening. Numbers chapter 31, verse 1 to 2.
The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. Afterwards shalt thou be gathered unto thy people.
Verse 8.
And they slew the kings of Midian beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Ncfi and Rechem and Zur and Hur and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also the son of Beor they slew with the sword.
Okay, and verse 14 into 16.
And Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, which came from the battle. And Moses said unto them, Have ye saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord.
So what the advice Balaam gives to the king Balak is, make the women go after the men of Israel, let them commit fornication, adultery, and worship Baal, and that will turn the Lord against them. So the king Balak does exactly that. The men of Israel fall for it, and there is a plague in the camp of Israel. God is angry, and 24,000 people died. Now, this happened because of the advice Balaam gave. Now, the kings of Midian, we spoke that Balak is the king of Moab, but we see here the kings of Midian. The Midianites were nomadic, they were moving here and there. And at this time, they lived with the people of Moab in great number. Okay, so that is why we see the reference over here. So the Lord says to Moses, go and kill these people. Okay, and we see that Balaam also dies in this. Okay, it is very clearly mentioned that Balaam, the son of Beor, was also killed by the sword. Okay, and we also see Moses getting angry because with the commanders of the army because they did not kill the women. They brought them alive, and Moses was angry, and he says, "You should have killed them because they caused the people of Israel to rebel against the Lord." Now, the same incident is mentioned in Joshua, book of Joshua. In Joshua chapter 13, verse 22, it says, the sons of Israel killed Balaam, the son of Beor, the diviner, with the sword among the rest of their dead. This is the same incident that we just read about. But look at the reference of how Balaam is referred over here. He's called as a diviner over here. In other translation, he's called as a soothsayer. Okay, so God left him after this. Okay, he was no longer a prophet. He became just a soothsayer. Okay, and that's how he died. Okay, so he was killed in this uh, judgment that God sends. Okay, and again we see this reference in the New Testament. Can we read Revelation chapter 2, verse 14? Revelation chapter 2, verse 14.
But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that holds the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication.
So Balaam taught Balak how to tempt Israel to turn against God. And even in the New Testament church, okay, Jesus is saying the same thing is happening. Okay, the people are getting tempted to turn against God. Okay, so this is not something that is happened in the Old Testament and is no longer relevant. This is not something that we can look at as an old story. but this is something that is happening even currently because the spirit behind that advice is still at work. Okay, it is still causing people to do evil and tempt God. Okay, so the people who are supposed to be blessed by God, they are tempting God, they are committing sin, and thereby incurring the wrath of God. Okay, just as Israel, the things that happened to Israel, the same thing is relevant even today. The people are tempting God and incurring a wrath upon themselves. Okay, so may God bless us with this verse. God bless you.